Hello everyone. Today we're going to make a cup of Sencha tea. Sencha is a Japanese tea, and the one we're going to have here is a spray-free tea. They're making a big deal about that it's spray-free, and for good reason. A lot of teas are sprayed with pesticides to keep the insects off. They do consume a lot of tea, the insects. So a lot of teas are sprayed. So to find one spray-free is quite special. And that's why you've heard me talk about a lot about going for organic and places and teas that you can really trust that are pesticide-free or toxin-free. Heavy metals oftentimes get absorbed by the tea plant or tea tree and toxify the tea, for want of a better word, and mold gets in there as well. So I don't want to make too much of a big deal about it, but I kind of do because I want you to have absolute confidence in the tea that you're drinking. And this is a tea from close to Kyoto. And a friend of mine, a good friend of mine, Steve Bimel, who lives in Kyoto, the grower is actually a friend of his. And he has a small tea farm, and he came to tea pretty late in life, but he sells his teas near a Zen monastery. So it's really wonderful to kind of know a little bit of a background of the grower and how they came to this. This particular grower also makes a black tea, which we'll probably feature in another episode. But for today I want to focus on the Sencha, a fresh vegetal tea, which is probably one of the most popular teas in Japan. We think of Japan, we think of matcha tea. Well, matcha is actually the tea leaves that are actually ground up. So you're actually drinking the whole tea leaf itself, which is one of the reasons why it's actually so healthy. But with the Sencha, the tea leaves are steamed early on after they're plucked, and that prevents the oxidation. And the way that, of course, the tea is prepared makes the tea its particular quality, and this is Sencha. I've already, so that you don't have to have the agonizing process of me measuring the tea, I've already measured about 3 grams of the tea here. But before we do that, I have noticed that in this pandemic that we've been under, that there's been a lot of mental stress that's been talked about, a lot of mental problems, a lot of anxiety. And so I thought that the harmonic self is all about being at ease, being in harmony, being at peace, being in resonance. So many ways of looking at it. But I wanted to talk to this idea of being at ease and how can we be at ease? How can we just relax and let go and appreciate the moment? Well, tea gives us that opportunity, of course. And we talked about ichigo, ichie, which is this idea of one time, one encounter. In other words, this is the only moment that there is. And that can really help us kind of embrace what's going on in the moment. Because no matter how good or bad it is the only moment that will ever be. So can we be present with it? But how can we be at ease in the moment? This is one thing that I want us to talk about a little bit today, because I think it is so important at any time, and particularly in the times that we live in. I'm going to be doing a harmonic journey, one of the pieces in this series, not Tea and Overtones, but another piece, in the next day or two, on talking about abdominal breathing, bringing our breath into our lower belly. And that's a very, very useful technique that we can be focused on our breath. And that's one way that we can be at ease in situations, is having that awareness of our breath. But I want to talk a little bit about another way that we can do it, moment to moment, that is actually quite simple. And let's talk about it. But first, let's get brewing this tea. This is very lovely. Again, taking a moment to appreciate everything. Now, I did show you this packet, and I wanted you to see the packet. The company, by the way, is Kouroan, Kouroan and .com. and you can go on there and see the teas, and it's got quite a charming little website. But of course, we really don't want to serve teas in packets like this. That's not quite the quality that we want. By the way, this was a May picking. They make a point that it was picked in May, so that's something to be aware of. And so we really want to have, part of the beauty of the tea is to have beautiful things. So normally we would have this canister. Now this canister is a commercial canister, and as always it'll have a lid and also another lid, because we want to make sure that it's sealed fresh. And sometimes this lid will be a plastic lid, oftentimes it is. And these are other canisters that I have that my wife Shelley, actually I had some washi paper. Washi paper is Japanese paper that's rather special, handmade paper. And she covered these basically tin cans, which are like this, you're seeing here, and covered them with this beautiful washi paper. So that's not something I would expect all of you to do, but it does make serving the tea a pleasure. Here's another beautiful one, and even another one. We had some beautiful papers that it was lovely to make use of them in this way. It's particularly one of my favorites, very classic Japanese design. But you can just go online and you can get something like this, which is actually very attractive. This is not paper actually, but it's just a design on the tea canister. And then you can have the pleasure of scooping the tea out of something pleasurable. Or again, this is a smaller one if you don't have too much tea. Still very pretty, commercial, but very, very nice and practical. This one is actually from Japan. I believe this one is probably from China, but maybe not, maybe from Japan. Again, I've chosen a tea cup, very important to me, as you know. This is a particularly beautiful one. I got this one, I think, in Los Angeles, so you don't have to go too far afield sometimes to find very nice ceramics. And this one has, as you can see, it's very curvy, very kind of lovely kind of quality to it, and a very nice smooth feel. So I really enjoy that. So I have all my implements, and I'm going to pour the water now. The temperature of the water is not as hot as it is for some teas. I mean, for a black tea, you want to be near boiling point, really close to. For an oolong, a little bit higher. And but for a sencha, you want to be on the low end, 170 perhaps degrees, 175 maybe, but 170. And another factor as well, which is very, very important, is that you do not want to be steeping this for too long. So just even perhaps 45 seconds would be good, or a minute. After that, it starts to get a little bit bitter, you know, that's the thing. And then you've kind of ruined a beautiful cup of tea. So, you know, we talked about peak tea and the tea crystals, and that's one of the advantages of the crystals, is that you get the perfect tea every time without any effort at all, without even thinking about it. But it does take some of the art and the craft out of it, and that moment where you can actually smell the tea and see the tea kind of brewing in the pot. And as you see, it's got a nice green color to it, which of course, as you would expect from a green tea, for it to be green, but actually not all of them are actually green. They have just different gradations, but it can still be a green tea and just have a more of a brown quality to it. So I do want to talk about this at ease, because I think it's so important that we be at ease with ourselves. It's very easy to have our shoulders hunched and be really crunched up and contracted, and we forget the moment at that point. So how can we be that way? Well, I think the key is this. When we're like this, it's almost like we're grabbing or grasping for something. So I can just pick up the teapot and I can be like this and scrunched up and very concentrated, or I can just make it an absolute pleasure just to pour the moment. And what I'm doing differently is, one way I'm leaning in, and one way I'm kind of leaning back. I'm just giving it space. I'm not crowding it with my energy. I'm just giving it space. Now, one reason I like this teacup, of course, is because it's whitish. It's kind of white. I can actually see the beautiful green color of the tea in there. And again, that's a beautiful pleasure. I want to get all these kind of drops out because they all contain the tea. I don't want the tea to steep because it'll get bitter, and I want to be fresh for the next steeping. So this idea of just leaning back a little bit. Now, not leaning back so that you're out of balance. You're still in your center. You're just not crowded over. You're just leaning back, just giving a little bit of space. So when you find yourself doing any task in life, whether it's making a cup of tea, which is an excellent time to practice this, or you're doing emails or opening letters, or somebody's making a noise outside, rather than like this kind of tendency to go like this, we just, in a sense, lean back. Yeah, just a little bit. It's just a small gesture. Again, not like this big, like this. No, that's going off balance the other way. It's just like this, giving a little space, just feeling that we've opened up some space between us. And as we give a little bit more space, we also create a little bit more time. This idea of timelessness. A lot of us seem to say, oh, I don't have time for this and I don't have time for that. And yet a nice little affirmation to say to yourself is, I have time. That's it, just that, I have time. And then just open up a little bit, allow a bit more space around you. And you'll find that some things that seem to be very intense and pressured suddenly disappear. So with that in mind, I have time, there's no rush. I want to bring again, allowing some space, I want to bring my teacup up to my lips rather than me kind of searching down like this, because I feel my neck is out of balance and I kind of lose my poise. And again, I'm grasping or grabbing. This way, lovely, fresh tea. And of course, unfortunately, what you can't say is that as I bring it up to my lips, I'm also taking a moment to take in the aroma of it. Which is also a very big part of the tea experience. Now, we don't always have to drink it hot. I actually like my teas to cool down a little bit because I find the flavor emerges more. So this is a delicious tea. So I have time. And as we allow that space, as we lean back a little bit, we can find that the pressures of the world just come off of us just a little bit. And we can once again enter this moment. And of course, the key with every sip of tea that we take in tea and overtones is gratitude. And gratitude can just simply be, thank you. In Japan, before they eat a meal, they have their own grace before meals. They say grace, but it's very, very simple. They say itadakimasu, itadakimasu. And itadakimasu means I receive. I receive. And what a beautiful way to say what we're talking about here. Instead of grabbing or grasping for anything, instead, I receive. Because we are receiving in each moment. We're receiving our breath. And there's nothing we have to do to take a breath. We receive the breath. The breath is moving through us without any effort on our part whatsoever. So I receive is perfect for being at ease and allowing more space and relaxation in our lives. Baby Special.